Так, добрий день, шановні колеги. У нас
It's 10 a.m. already. We are going to start our work. Once again, hello everybody. The subject of our roundtable today is problems and prospects under the circumstances of aggressive policy of Russia. Mainly, it's the continuation of our roundtable that we had before, named New Lines of European Safety. We have envisaged the development of events, and to make it short, in 2014 Russia invaded Ukraine, and on the background of this invasion we have seen the inactivity of international organizations. The USA were the guarantor of international order and democracy, and they didn't react in a proper way to this invasion, and we saw that everything goes to the fact that Europe and Ukraine seemed to be alone to counter the Russian aggression. And we have analyzed the events on global level and on national level, and we have come to the conclusion that Russian invasion into Ukraine, it's not just the interstate conflict, it's a full-scale, fundamental war related to the fact that Russians want to renew the status of Russian Empire. It sounds very bad in the 21st century, but in fact Russia wants to get the world back to century 19 and 20. All that is taking place. We have to react to it. The USA claimed that they have a new strategy of national security, that it changed completely from what they had for the last 30 years, and they start self-isolation. And yesterday there was information that they have passed the draft law in the Congress of the USA that that names NATO organization that is not stable and reliable, and that the USA has to quit North Atlantic Treaty Organization. The Ukraine, that has been under the umbrella of the USA and Europe, is concerned about it. Now we have to think more about our own security. I'm not going to take much time because we have many participants and we have only 2 hours for our work, and I'm going to introduce you all who are taking part in our roundtable. We are going to give the word to everyone who wants to speak, 3 or 5 minutes for every participant, and it will be enough for us to end our roundtable. Let's start with introducing our participants. I'm going to read the list. Wróblewski Petro Yurievich, Ambassador, Special Envoy of Minister of Foreign Affairs. Ilya Kvas, I can see him. He's going to come later. Vadim Vasilievich Skibitsky, deputy head of the defense intelligence of Ukraine, major general, people's deputy of Ukraine, then our representatives of diplomatic departments, Mr. Ambassador who represents the embassy of Georgia, French, Mr. Francesco Pesce, special envoy in of the embassy of Italy, Andrei Chuk Yuri Bikolaev, director of the Center of Strategic Analysis and Environmental Safety, Buzarov Andrei, political analyst, and Ansar isn't present. Yevgen Mahda, is he present? No. Oleg Mashkov, professor, doctor of technical sciences. Ostapenko Igor Volodymyrovich, vice president of the Institute of Global Policy. Mykola Pasko, financial expert, representing fund Spring. Then representative of the group called NESA. It's a group representing the interests of peoples in Russia, suffering from Russia. Sergei Chernov, is he present? No. Valery Yuzba, president of the Trade and Economical Mission of Ukraine. Yunus Demiroglu, not present. And in Zoom, we are going to have Andrei Yusev, the representative of Department of Defense Intelligence, Vladislav, Taras Gorodny, the director of the National Anti-Crisis Group, our political expert from Brussels, Yuri Ivanovich Kogut, consulting company candidate of legal sciences, Vitaly Mariusa, from Moldova Research Institute. Hello, everybody. Tomasz Anloi, journalist, expert for ex-Soviet territories. Petr Poiman, Republic of Czech, criminalist and specialist in military crimes. Shahaba Mani, General Director of Defense Technologies from Switzerland. Maibor Schersch, Director of Defense Company from Canada. And David Wolf, from Director of the company North Star from the Czech Republic. They are all the participants planned to take part in our round table. And as I said, today we are continuing our round table that we had before and named new lines of European safety. Then our meeting was started by Major General Skibitsky. Now we are going to take him the floor as well, to be the first. Then to prepare People's Deputy Taruta. He has to prepare to intervene then. Hello, good morning, everybody. First of all, I thank you for your invitation, because this topic is very vibrant. It has become not only actual for Ukraine for defining our further steps in policy, it has become most actual for Europe on the whole. If we speak about present day, Russian present day war has led to many changes in leadership in NATO and allied countries. At present, leadership of NATO countries are well aware of the threat coming from Russian Federation, and they are not excluding the aggression from the side of Kremlin, I have to mark that these thoughts have been explained in many documents of organizations. Declaration HESCO of the summit of NATO defines in a clear way that Russian Federation is a threat to terrorism, for the European space. In October, there was admitted sea strategy of NATO that admits two threats. First is Russia is the biggest direct threat to the safety of allied countries, and terrorism that remains one of the main threats for the European community. In leading documents and strategic documents of NATO, Russia is considered to be the threat in Great Britain, Latvia, Lithuania, and other countries. The head of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of France and other countries stipulate that they have to be ready to counteract against Russian aggression that may take place in future. This way, leadership of NATO countries see clearly that Russia may pose a threat to the whole European continent. And I want to underline the main actions that NATO uses to strengthen the defense capacity. First of all, they have proclaimed and are trying to keep the level of expense on the level of 5% of national budgets, and we see powerful integration, namely Finland and Sweden, in NATO structure, and strengthened measures are taken in Finland. On the territory battalion tactical groups, they have created brigade tactical groups. It's the major reinforcement in NATO countries. It is introduced a new model of armed organization. For our understanding, they are divided in different levels in three groups. The first group, it's more than 100,000 soldiers that can be ready in 10 days. The second level, 200,000 soldiers, and the third level, 500,000 soldiers that have to be ready in a month or in a month and a half. Also, currently, they are developing possibilities to defend against air threats from the side of Russia. We have seen lately unmanned aircrafts, Russian unmanned aircrafts over the territories of different countries, Romania, Moldova, also in Baltic countries. Lithuania is suffering as such in this relation from Russia. Mobility is raised due to transferring of troops from one part of the continent to another, and they also actively do measures to strengthen the combat potential of soldiers. The most massive ones for the last 20 years. We have analyzed and determined which are the key problems existing in European continent concerning the system of European security. According to our views, the most important factor for Europe is the strategic uncertainty of the USA, and that was said also by Mr. Oleg. What the question is, what is it? The policy is going to be, and what Europeans have to do with that. We have many. There are many strategic initiatives in the framework of NATO, but they are often coordinated or doubling the efforts, and that leads to ineffective use. One of the most problematic issue is insufficient quantity of defense initiatives in NATO, deficit of munition, restricted production capacities, and restricted potential in technology, not only in Europe but also in the USA. Europe depends much on European and Chinese American and Chinese components. Unaccepted decisions as for joint command for joint operations and other measures, and all that influences in a bad way the possibility to react fast to modern threats. That is to say, Europe understands the necessity to strengthen the defense capacity, but we understand also new threats to European security system. We continue to watch closely those issues. We share our experience. We understand how necessary our experience may be for our European partners to be indeed ready for more aggressive policy of Russian Federation. And to end my speech with, I can say that I have recently seen a very interesting research conducted by consulting group Le Grand Continent in Paris, and this is namely the research which will give us the basis for our discussion. People from different European countries were asked, and very interesting results were obtained. 51% thinks that there is a very high risk of Russian military aggression against one of the countries of European Union. And see, the picture is that in Poland, 77% of people think that it could be real. In Italy, it's less. In Spain, it's 35%. So the further is the country from the border with Russia, the less is the percentage. 79% of people asked think in France 55, Italy, Belgium 86% of population think people asked think that their countries are incapable of countering Russian aggression. And also the risk of open countering terrorist organization is also on a very considerable level, and all those threats are being actively discussed in Europe. This issue has to be tackled, and I think that without participation of Ukraine, without its experience, its potential, and its know-how, it will be impossible to create a powerful defense system in Europe. Thank you very much, Deputy Sergei Taruta. Please, now we give the floor to you, and we ask our diplomats to get ready to speak next. Are our guests ready to speak? Yes, all right. Sergei Alexeyevich.
Пауза.
Diplomats would like to take a pause. So, hello everyone. Thank you for inviting me. Although I specialize in economic issues, nevertheless, since 2014, I've been dealing with defense issues inclusive. In the first place, with defense issues of Ukraine, I would like to extend my gratitude to Oleg for this initiative, because the Institute of Global Policy nowadays is currently highly relevant in order to develop their proposals and offer them, first of all, both to our politicians who are in charge of taking decisions and globally. So I would like our today's meeting also to lay some underpinning in the foundation of both Ukraine's and Europe's security. Definitely all of the stances are changing nowadays, and something that, the statistics that have just been articulated is vastly changeable. It varies largely from country to country in Europe, and people are beginning to feel acute danger, something that they didn't sense at the beginning of the Ukraine's war. They thought that everything would finish very quickly and this would never reach them. This animal would have enough to eat, would get full and wouldn't go on. But what we can see nowadays is that Russia has challenged not only Ukraine, but it has also challenged the entire democratic world. So it goes without saying it's desirable for all of us to coalesce, to unite, and to be able to win. Although for gaining a victory, not much was needed. We needed only to get what could destroy their advance in the air. This is the only thing which is helping Russia to advance their advantage in the air, because technologies are changing rapidly and drastically, as well as means of waging the war. And the greatest danger and threat nowadays is presented not even by UAVs, but by guided air bombs. So the first thing is to be able to make it impossible for them to fly within the range of 150 to 200 kilometers. This would be the first contribution, and the second contribution would be economic one, and the third point would be to make it impossible for them to receive all of the component parts, without which Russia cannot produce a single modern device, whether it be a UAV, EW systems, missiles, anything. However, the world, for the fourth year running, nearly the fourth year running, has been looking at the whole situation without responding properly. Since late 2022, I have been offering a sanctions Rammstein group for 53 countries. Volodymyr knows it better. For these countries to unite and do what America did during the first stage of the Second World War, when it approved the law, according to which any goods that could be used further for military purposes, it doesn't matter whether it be chemical devices or metals, were immediately classified as dual-use goods and regulated. And if Americans, Europeans, Japanese systems who are supplying all of these systems had done it, then today we would get a great deal of competitive advantage in terms of production. I'm sure of this. I'm strongly convinced of that because we did some research into that. We discussed this issue together with some Western companies, which made some provisions for Ukraine. So if we had these provisions, it would have disabled Russia in terms of getting all of these component parts. There are three components. This is the full dependence on the West. Right now they are adapting, changing their ways. They're trying to rebuild their system, but they haven't finished it yet. So these three components that I have mentioned, if they had eliminated them, we would have been victorious by now. So this is at the top of our agenda. But what we can see nowadays is that the democratic world is split into the countries for whom democratic values are at the foreground, at the top of the agenda. For them, economic gains are of greater concern, and the other ones for whom economic gains are of greater concern than democratic values. So these are the societies which are trying to ensure a totalitarian governance systems, and unfortunately America right now is also ill with this disease. We would like them to get rid of this disease and shake it off as quickly as possible. And I'm very much hopeful that in February and March, the situation in the US will change as a result of internal pressure exerted. And I think that we have to stand strong until the month of April. And I think Vadim knows more about it, but it's my impression that the war will not finish very quickly. We will still have to wage this war during the nearest 3 months and detain and deter the situation. And then hopefully some more rigid and stiff response will follow from the United States. 2 weeks ago, I was with a friendly group on a friendly visit to Germany, to the Parliament of Germany. We had some meetings at the level of our friendship group, the representatives of all of the parliamentary committees, including the Defense Committee in the Parliament of Germany. And basically, the chairman of this committee said, while formerly we would go to teach you, now we will have to go and learn from you. And they recognize this threat. They understand that Germany needs to be a leader. And they have allocated for the next year something within their budget, something they didn't have previously, 11.5 million euros towards supporting arms and equipment. Last week Norway took the decision to the amount of 8.5 billion to go to the defense purposes. 7.5 will definitely go towards defense, and it's very fine. The main idea is to ensure that this money is appropriated efficiently, and this will definitely be helpful to us, including other countries who are also making similar decisions in order to help Ukraine as best as they can. So Europe can only count on themselves. That's what we are witnessing. Moreover, Europe can only count on Ukraine with the great deal of experience, because now technologies are changing so rapidly. Whereas some 3 years ago we were suffering from the Russian onslaught, now we can see that it's just 3 to 5 people breaking through defenses. So the systems have changed drastically. The same goes for electronic warfare, electronic reconnaissance and intelligence. It's a huge technological war ongoing. And indeed, no Western allies or partners have it in their arsenal, and they will not be able to recognize it fully until they enter this war. This is why we have what we have in the Baltic countries. The Baltic countries and Poland are very decisive in their defense efforts. The further from the boundaries of Ukraine, the less is this necessity to defend themselves. Also in Africa, a lot of exacerbated problems are beginning to show. So Europe cannot count on the United States anymore, and the trend that we have nowadays, something that Europeans are beginning to face, is to depend on America as little as they can. So for us, it's a unique chance. And some of our great big enterprises like Luch are collaborating with Norway and Germany in order to establish their own air defense systems. And in this respect, I suppose that we can become some of the chief providers, because within a short period of time we have been able to develop a lot. I'm also in active participation in different programs with Poland. They have taken recently a decision about landmines and tank mines. They have seceded from Ottawa agreement, and they're studying now our experience of how to proceed. And now Ukraine possesses this unique chance to become the main stronghold of the new European army. Some 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, perhaps 3 years ago, the French president said, that Europe needs to have its own European army, and everybody looked askance and started whispering to themselves, like, what is he talking about? But now we are arriving at the same conclusion. So without Ukraine, no European security is possible. Without integrating into NATO or Europe, it's impossible to create an effective system of deterrence, and something which is also true about our unique capability, something that no one else has, because they haven't experienced this war yet. We have created a lot of integrated information systems, a single field for EW systems, zonal systems for anti-Shahed and other drones, some of the unique things that we have authored, and they will definitely become the foundation for the global security of Europe. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sergei. You have made a very important statement. Europe can only count on itself and Ukraine. While our diplomats are keeping a pause, a diplomatic pause. Now, there are some willing to speak. Valery Yuzba, a diplomat with a great deal of experience now, the president of the Ukrainian Trade and Economic Mission, the candidate of economic sciences. Включіть мікрофон, будь ласка. Thank you very much, Oleg and the Institute of Global Policy Making, for inviting me every time. We always speak about some things, very good things are being articulated, but I can see that somehow it's not working out, at least along the lines that we want, which are needed nowadays. I thank the parliamentarians, especially my friend of old. I'm also an advisor to him for his great intervention. Also, I thank Major General for his previous intervention. So the presentation seems like everything's okay, that we are advancing, we are flying, killing, and building a coalition within Europe. You know, for more than 20 years, I worked in Europe, and the way I see it, I know Brussels quite well. I know the security system there, and I know their decision-taking policy, and I can tell you in a very responsible way, it takes such a long time for them to take a decision in the European Commission. In fact, Russians can advance the borders of France in that period of time. So why am I saying so? It appears to me that today we have to speak not about what Europe has to do. The world is the way it is. It's the given. It's not going to become better or worse for us. The big politics is always a cynical cause. No matter what we say, no matter what decisions we take here. So I think that we have to concentrate on these numbers, that Europe is 51% of disbelief in Russian aggression and some other countries within its parameters. But I think that instead we have to focus on the homework that we have to do here in Ukraine, something that within these 4 years we failed to do. Look. Number one, something that I would draw your attention to, these are the failures in the systemic, consistent work of our authorities. These are the most dangerous things, and we have to recognize it. The most dangerous thing, we don't have counter-propaganda the way it should be. At least in Europe, it's not present, it's not funded properly. We don't have the respective channels to communicate to the Europeans. It's impossible for us to turn off the Russian channels, but look at how efficiently they operate. Look at the way our representative spoke yesterday or the day before yesterday at the United Nations. Diplomats don't need to repeat the same things over and over, because corny jokes are corny jokes, you know, as they usually say. This has been repeated many times by the first Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, our Ukrainian Foreign Minister, when he was there and when he made his speech right at the very beginning of the session. You can watch it if you like. So most importantly, currently, the way I see it, these are the failures of our authorities. These are of the greatest danger within this system of work that needs to be ensured. Energy systems defenses. Tell me, please, within the last 4 years, as I have been preparing to speak today, I saw the remarks made by Razumkov Institute here in Ukraine. What stopped us to go to piston running stations? What was in our way to diversify our energy system? We never did anything. Today we have proposed some recommendations to Galushchenko, the Ministry of Energy. And we say, like, okay, see, he mismanaged, let him go. But now it's martial law. And according to this martial law, this man who mismanaged needs to be coped with. We need to do something to this man and the rest around him. But they're just leaving Ukraine and that's it. So the energy system defense and protection, I have said our information resistance is very weak because now we are within a very serious stage of information resistance, and I can see that we are working very weakly. And the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is also weak in the way that it demonstrates its efforts. I don't know what's causing this mismanagement, but that's something that I can see. And most importantly, something else that also requires a lot of attention. This is a low ideological resistance, which is only mounting in Ukraine. Low ideological resistance leads to failures in everything. And most importantly, we have to take all of the necessary reforming decisions within our army. My dear friends, unless proper changes have been introduced in the nearest future, whatever you may say, this may be rendered ineffective. In some 3 to 4 months, it may all be levelized and rendered ineffective because the issue is all very, very serious indeed. So if we have done it, all of this homework, then we can talk in earnest with Europe. Only then can we speak about European security seriously and move in that direction. Thank you, Valery. Let me also draw your attention to another global issue, which is to do with the world's environmental security. And now with us, we have some guests from Sweden, Frederick Johnson, and Director of Strategic Analysis and Environmental Safety, Yuri Andreychuk. So I would like to give the floor to Yuri Andreychuk first, and then to speak will be Frederick, and then Professor Mashkov, for them to share with us about this component and what we will have to do in this realm. And then I'm inviting to get ready the diplomats. Maybe some of the diplomats will be given the floor. If not, then the representative of the captive nations in Russia, Magomed Tareyev.
Thank you very much for the invitation. It has become traditional to raise questions concerning environmental safety. In Europe, it's one of the priorities for security issues. And today, European system is going through the biggest crisis since the Second World War. Full-scale aggression of Russian Federation. It ruined these ideas of stability of security architecture. We have faced the threats of total mining, humanitarian issues. Ukraine is one of the most mined countries. Its lands, cultivated lands, riverbank areas remain one of the most dangerous, and it poses a threat to the food security in the whole European continent. Environmental Organization for Environmental Renewal, which I represent, has founded together with the company from the Kingdom of Sweden, where the director is present today, Frederick Johnson, who starting from 2019 works in Ukraine and solves the issues which I will continue to tell about further on. We have signed the memorandum between the Institute for Environmental Renewal and the Kingdom of Sweden, the creation of the first humanitarian European Center for Demining as an element of a security structure of Europe. We consider this institute not only the educational unit, but also it has to conduct preparation of specialists for demining. It has become the basis for environmental rehabilitation and finding the solution from international safety issues concerning mining risks, and it has to become the platform for introducing the experience of countries who experienced demining. We consider the element of European security that it will be difficult to have without proper demining, explosive stuff. Without that, we cannot speak about economical safety and returning of people to country. It will be the contribution of Ukraine to further European security. We offer institutional solutions which can become the model for the whole region. Ukraine today defends not only its own borders, it forms a new philosophy of European safety through humanitarian responsibility, environmental safety, and common readiness to counteract aggression. And we consider and continue to consider that economical issues also has to be spoken about as about the problem of strategical renewal of Ukraine and our cooperation with European partners. Thank you for your attention, Oleg Valeryevich. Now we give the floor to our guest Frederick Johnson. Then Kogut Yuri Ivanovich in Zoom has to get ready, and then Magomed Teriev will take his turn.
Thank you, Oleg. I think you all need translation now, so please put on the headphones, because my Ukrainian is not so good. Thank you very much for the invitation to this forum. And ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor to be here. I have studied your reports from previous roundtable discussion and very impressive talks. As said, my name is Fredrik Johnson. I'm from Sweden. I have a military background, been working as a Swedish military officer since the last 25, 30 years almost. My expertise is within intelligence, counterterrorism, and as was talked about by Yuri, demining or mine clearance, EOD operations. I started to work together with Ukraine in 2019 in a military support to strengthen the capacity among the special forces in Ukraine. Nowadays, I'm the head of a Swedish company called Disarmament Solution. And we decided early to be present here in Ukraine, not acting from outside, because that's the only way we can really interact with the Ukrainian authorities and the different stakeholders in this field. Our main activity is explosive ordnance disposal, mine action. But not only, we provide more and more military support to your tactical units and tactical authorities. For example, we provide advisory support to your different agencies, how to build a sustainable system for counter-explosive threats. We also try to provide strong and long-term system solutions, how to handle this. I was a bit irritated when we saw the full-scale invasion from Russia. And I saw how different countries, also my own country, Sweden, provided support in bits and pieces. I missed the system integration, and I decided from our company, we can do better. We have to think first, and then provide solution that Ukraine and Ukraine authorities can scale up. Because what I saw was that single pieces of equipment, it was good support, and it was a lot of equipment, but it was not system integrated. So I saw the problem that ended up on the ground here, with equipment from all over the world that was very hard to system integrate. So we have tried to do the opposite. Sometimes we manage to do so, and sometimes not. And that is to provide complete solutions, where everything is system integrated, but also according to international standard. One of the reasons field that we have been working a lot within is underwater clearance. It's a very complex area. It's a very complex problem to deal with. And we tried to support the different agencies to create a system solution for this. Another area was mentioned by Yuri, an important cooperation as we see it. Because the only way for Ukraine to handle this enormous problem in the long run is to have own capacity building and be independent in production of new clearance assets. And the initiative from the Institute of Ecology to set up a training platform to support different agencies, different organizations in Ukraine to produce new deminers, new sappers, is absolutely crucial to manage this. So I decided on behalf of my organization to sign a memorandum with this institute, because I believe that this can be a national hub to produce the deminers for the future. This initiative by the Institute of Ecology is unique in 3 different ways as I see it. And I would like to mention and draw your attention to these 3 aspects. First of all, it combines not only the Ukrainian needs and requirement, but it also opens up to integrate the international standard. That means that everything that's produced under this framework will not only fulfill the Ukrainian standard, but also the international. Secondly, the approach of clearance is a sustainable and green approach, and that is absolutely new. One of the most dirty activities is to take care of explosive remnants from war. But the initiative from this institute is to do this in a green and sustainable way, and not only to consider safety and security, but also the environmental risk in what we are doing. Thirdly, and finally, it's the multidisciplinary approach of this initiative, because it combines not only the civilian need, but also take care of the military knowledge that exists in this field and combine it with the academic approach. So to summarize, unfortunately, Ukraine have a unique experience in this field. You have the best knowledge about how the modern warfare looks. But also, Ukraine has the most unique expertise in this field, because there's nobody else in the world that has all this experience that you have right now. So if you combine what you know and what you have with the international standards and best practice, and if you structure this in an academic framework, I think that this can create the hub for very long-term capacity building in the field of mine action in Ukraine, and it can also be a future field of export for Ukraine. Thank you.
Да, спасибі велике, Фредерік, за змістовний виступ. Ми запрошуємо до слова
Interaction, and we invite Mr. Vankov, and Magomed Tariv is to get ready afterwards. Дня всі.
The affair of Georgia here in Ukraine. Unfortunately, I don't have answers on the question of security guarantees or model should be now or what we are facing now. I know that my country is Ukraine. We have said, and we have in Georgia in the constitution, the Euro-Atlantic integration, and we thought and still thinking that NATO is it should be garant of the civilized world. But we see that even from 2008, what happened in Georgia, there was no proper evaluation of what happened. And I'm not sure that even now the civilized world, let's say like that, knows how to respond to Russia. This is the problem. As all you know, after 6-day war in Georgia, there was a ceasefire agreement between Georgia and Russia, and I'm sure you know that this agreement is not working. More, every day my country and the people who live in the not far from the occupied zones are seeing, and we all witnessing that so-called borderization, that every day, morning time, you can wake up and want to go to the church, and this part of the village is not anymore controlled by the Georgian. So some green men will come, cut the village, and you can go to the cemetery, or you go to the church, or to your family members who live the other side of the village. And maybe you all not know that, but the Russian base is located less than 40 kilometers from the parliament building of Georgia, and 500 meters from the main highway which connects east and west part of Georgia. And we are dealing with this issue from 2008, and we are screaming and trying to just show how we are living. But unfortunately, Ukraine, after Georgia was Ukraine in 2014, and there was no proper evaluation again, and we are witnessing now the full-scale invasion and war in Europe. So I really hope so. Our friends, our colleagues in the NATO member countries, finally will make the proper evaluation. I think a third time said this sentence, but we need to somehow call the name what's going on here and be prepared. As General said, that there was a survey in Europe that the population in Europe not sure that they will handle the Russians. I really want to read in few months other surveys which show that Europe and the civilized world is ready to respond to Russian properly. This is shortly what I want to say, and I thank you for the invitation, and that it was very interesting to hear the speakers, and I'm here and will hear the others as well. Thank you.
Didi Madloba.
Mr. Magloba. Now I want to give the floor to Mr. Yuri Kogut, and then ex-minister of Republic of Moldova, and gets prepared. Now we are going to give the floor to our colleagues in Zoom. Yuri Ivanovich, the floor is yours. Yuri Ivanovich, please turn on the microphone. Ну, давайте.
I would like to share some practical experience which has been shaped over the last years on the basis of our collaboration with France, Germany, Belgium, and the Czech Republic with the foundation of Valery. Last year, our organization was able to work on some serious international issues in France at a conference where with our peers we were able to exchange at the expert level. They raised different government level problems. So something we would like to emphasize in this respect, to have the integrated opinion. We would like to maintain better contacts with the experts when talking about the issues that Europe is facing nowadays. It's politics, leaders, security issues there do not rank first but second. They're of secondary importance. This is visible due to their decisions and budgets allocated. Because if this is very little money, minuscule money allocated to security reasons, then it's only a theoretical issue that they consider for themselves to handle. The second point is NATO. What was there in Europe before the collapse of the Warsaw Agreement? Not everyone remembers that. Older generation will remember that, because otherwise many consider this as an outdated story. But anyway, prior to that, we had a security system in place in Europe to counter four fronts which had been shaped within the former Soviet Union at the time. There was the central group of troops, the northern group of troops in Germany, for example. Different models were elaborated and devised, defense systems and resources allocated on both sides. Which could equally deal with any kinds of military onslaughts. After the Warsaw troops exceeded Europe, the system of European security was fragmented, and national structures occupy a very small space in that. But the major layer within the European system was contributed by, surprising as it may be, Americans. Everyone relied on Americans. The next issue to mention is the fact that in Europe, global and fundamental risks, analytical, biological, nuclear risks and threats and military threats are not dealt with properly. They are only counting Russian resources and comparing that with their European resources. And some information has already sounded here today that France may be ready only within 4 years. I graduated from a military academy in my day, and we studied different models except France, because France at that time implemented a friendly policy, quasi-friendly policy with regard to the Soviet Union, while nowadays France is very supportive of Ukraine. There's a lack of understanding at the political level of contemporary military security. Why is it lacking? Because in order to speak about security, one needs to know your own threats. And the majority of European politicians fail to understand these threats. Only Poles probably are savvier about it. And another important point to mention, it's the lack of understanding that Russia is engaging a hybrid war against Europe. And this has been going on constantly since the war in 1945 finished. So concerning prospects of creation, I see both Ukrainian and European lines merging together. From my perspective as an expert, I'm only speaking on behalf of myself. I would single out 3 things. So we first have to handle the model of the European threats, because they don't recognize themselves, these threats. And for them, the main tasks boil down to handling social issues within their own countries, but security, defense issues is something far away from them, because Ukraine is waging the war for them, and they lack the proper understanding for themselves. And assessing the resources worldwide, every country needs to realize which resources Russia can utilize against them, and it requires processing, developing military plans, security and defense plans. Next, it takes probably assessing individual resources of every country to be able to measure them up to the threats offered by Russia. This is not happening. Over the last years, I have worked with experts of many countries, and all of them, for the main part, have been speaking about far-fetched and theoretical rather than practical measures undertaken. Then there is another issue, or a prospect of an issue, for Europe to be left alone, facing the problem posed by the aggressor, in case the United States drastically changes their policy making, and this policy will definitely change. Because previously the United States funded NATO security system and was supportive of the system by way of placing its own troops, and Europe thought it was enough. Nowadays it's not enough. So, Yuri, you have only 1 minute left. So what can be offered as a solution? Once in the government of Ukraine, headed by Mr. Pustovoytenko, a system was established. And they had to deal with counter-propaganda issues. No matter how much we speak, until we have the system in place to counter the propaganda, something that we can share with our neighbors on the basis of our mistakes committed, Europeans are never going to have this system. So thank you for your attention. I'm ready to answer your questions, should you have any. Thank you. Thank you, Yuri. Vitaly Marius, please. Next, Magomed Tariev, get ready.
I hope you can hear me. From the very beginning, I would like to thank, as always, Ukrainian people for their heroic fight and for protecting not only Ukraine, but also our country, Republic of Moldova, and all the democratic way of life. I also appreciate the invitation, and I'm sorry that I couldn't this time be physically in Kiev, but I will have my small contribution on this very important topic for the international community, because I think it's important not if we have to create a new European security system in context of the Russian aggressive foreign policy, but what kind of system should be and how fast we should create as Europeans this system. I'll straighten really short on the three main topics. One is the structural problems of the current European security system exposed by Russian aggression. Second is the emerging architecture of the new Europe. And of course, I will touch slightly on the Republic of Moldova. As we look from the past, the European security structure actually was based on four assumptions. And the first was that Russia, after the Cold War, would remain a regional, rational actor. But as we can see, Russia never wanted to be one of the regional actors, and she shifted from selective coercion, as it was in 1992, the war against the Republic of Moldova, to systemic aggression. We see this system, Georgia in 2008, after Ukraine 2014, full aggression in 2022. So this was the disbalance of all the security arrangement in Europe, and most of the agreements, international agreements, actually collapsed. Second, the second assumption after the 90s was that economic independence would moderate geopolitical behavior. But now we see, especially after 2022 and full invasion, that actually the energy, the social arrangements and the food supply, migration, cyber, everything has been weaponized, have become the weapons of aggression, of aggressors. So now, as we see the hybrid threats, which just a decade ago were just some threats, now they have become the full scale of war operations. Yeah, so we have to look at the military and the hybrid threats, almost the same. And a good example is Moldova, which actually was not attacked militarily yet, and I hope it will not be, but it's in a full-scale hybrid war with Russia. The third component will be, or assumption, that political and economic integration could substitute for hard power guarantees. But again, after the full-scale invasion, we have discovered the gaps and limits which are in military capabilities of the European countries and the equipment capabilities, and this assumption also doesn't work. And the last one, we see, as was mentioned by some other contributors, that the United States would remain the ultimate security provider. And we see that the United States is pulling out little by little. Even the recently published national security strategy has some pitfalls in it. And here I can mention the decision of reducing the forces in Romania and other countries in Europe. So that means that all the assumptions from the 90s, they don't work anymore. So Europeans must assume greater responsibility for their own security. And for a country like mine, for the Republic of Moldova, that's particularly challenging given its constitutional neutrality, geographic exposure, and the fact that we do have Russian forces in the Transnistrian region, and they see that those forces could be really challenging. And as you know, a couple of days ago or yesterday, it was a statement by the intelligence community from Ukraine that in Transnistria not everything is silent, and there are some preparations which could be challenging also for Ukraine and for Republic of Moldova. So what should be done and how could be done? So here I will just straighten that it's about how fast and would be this security coherent or will be fragmented. We see that the aggressor, especially the Russian Federation, would want a fragmented Europe, which would not have a common security policy, security forces. And in this context, I will straighten just a couple points. NATO, for a moment, is the main organization and which is focused on deterrence and defense of European Union. Probably it should remain with the main ally or with less involvement of it, but Europe should decide. It's around NATO, it maintains NATO, and not to have duplicated efforts, maybe to put everything around NATO. But at the same time, should be a more strategic European Union with more strategic capabilities, which would be directed from one point, not nationally, but one point, something similar to NATO. And third, we should be flexible to not, outside to permit regional coalitions like Nordic, Baltic Nordic countries coalition, Bucharest 9, and we see the trilateral Moldova, Ukraine, Romania initiatives. So this kind of initiatives also probably should be integrated in the European security structure for the future. And the last one, important, it's that from my point of view, European Union should look already, based on the experience from Ukraine, not only developing the military defense capabilities, but the whole resilience. Because as I mentioned, the energy interconnection is really vital, and the aggressor, Russian Federation, they target the energy interconnections, energy sector in Ukraine. The cyber defense should be probably interconnected, not nationally built, but interconnected. Civil protection, communication. Well, altogether, the resilience should be at the same level as the military or defense component. For Republic of Moldova, we, as I said, we've went, especially last year, this year when we had the presidential, we had parliamentary election, and last year with the presidential elections, we have seen how Russian Federation uses all the leverage, also that it has. So for us, especially, also it's a problem our constitutional neutrality, that we don't, according to the constitution, we cannot be in different alliances, military alliances. So in the new European structure, we as a country probably should rely more on, until we get rid of this stipulation in the constitution, we should rely more on cooperation and on the forms that do not limit this neutrality. So infrastructure protection, logistic, cyber cooperation, and having all the vulnerabilities, we have to do more with not only with the European Union, but with our, especially with our neighbors, Ukraine and Romania. This situation which is now in Europe, this security situation, also brings some opportunities for the Republic of Moldova. And we could use it for deeper integration with the EU security and defense system, something that is done and every day by the government of the Republic of Moldova. And we do have a lot of help that we never had in the last 30 years in the defense sector, in the cyber security protection, energy sector, interconnection with European security, European energy sector. Also, we strengthened the Romania and Moldova security access, having a NATO country, which we are speaking the same language, have the same culture, and we even can bypass these neutrality problems and have different exercises, cross-border contingency planning, and so on and so forth. And of course, we should straighten this triangle, Moldova, Ukraine, Romania, to protect regionally in the Black Sea region our security. And of course, for us, it's important that even we have this neutrality, yes, must not rely on it, and because it brings vulnerabilities. So, in conclusion, I would mention that a new European security system probably is emerging not because the European Union wants it, but because it needs it. And now would be important what kind of security system, how fast it would be, because of this will depend if Europe will stay as a leader, will become a world leader, will be capable to protect itself or not. So deeper integration with European structures for the Republic of Moldova is needed in this kind of security structure, strengthening relationship with Romania and Ukraine, of course, and from my perspective also would be in the next couple of years to get rid of this neutrality status, which actually doesn't bring anything good. And at the end, resilience, integration and strategic partnerships will help us to overcome our security problems and become part of the common European security system. Thank you very much, and I look forward to the discussion and the questions if you are. Thank you so much.
Да, дякуємо, пане генерал. Хочу сказати, що
Thank you, Mr. General. Vitaly Berezyuk, Director of the Research Institute, is a partner of our Institute of Global Policy. Magomed Dariyev is going to speak now. Oleg Mashko is to get ready afterwards. Hello, dear participants. I don't speak good Ukrainian, then that's why I'm going to continue in another language. In Russian, I want to tell you as a citizen of the Czech Republic that has just returned from the Czech Republic. It's just sufficient for us to see the reports of French, Czech, Italian intelligence reports who tell us very clearly that Russia has already said the war against Europe. It's like the voice, it's not the voice calling in the desert, but there is almost zero reaction to it on both from leadership and citizens. And I must say that even Russian propaganda extremists are outraged by the way that Europe doesn't have a certain plan of interaction, of counteraction with Russia. And there are very little judging from the last report of German intelligence that Russia is now actively studying key logistic routes in Europe. We may admit that it has had to be done long ago. The Iron Curtain has to be pulled again. Representatives of Ingush and Chechen republics, they are fleeing from forced mobilization. In other republics like Buryatia and other republics, mobilization is done in a forced way just to satisfy Kremlin plans. And when the guys try to enter Western countries, it has become impossible, even for big money. But for the General Tokarev, who committed a lot of crimes, his daughter can freely travel in Europe. It outrages even propaganda guys from Russia, as well as presence of Putin's daughter in Europe and others. And if we take small peoples, Chechen representatives has been elected to parliament. He rents a very rich house he has no questions from tax administration or something else. His brother is a killer of Kadyrov bodyguard who left Chechnya and testified against Kadyrov. And this situation keeps going on, and I'm going to tell that today, talking about security, everybody except special forces and intelligence that speaks about it. Other people try not to speak. And it's the voice of the President of Czech Republic that Russian groups has to be put under the control. It is a single voice, others not talking about it. Concerning security in Europe, absence of infantry, I mean absence of well-motivated, incentivized infantry. Nobody has effective infantry. There are people, but there are no motivated infantrymen. There is no communication, and being given the fact that for the 30 years those who are being tried to be pulled into infantry, people just tell about gender issues. You know the issue with quadrober. That story raises massive protests. Your life is a major value. Responsibilities between your state, between your nation, such values are ignored totally, and then a conscription comes, and the guy who was raised with different values refuses to go into the army. Such people says that they prefer to live under occupation to serve Putin rather than put on military uniform, and the only method to solve the issue is making normal communication and investing in proper propaganda efforts both in Europe and Ukraine. And unfortunately, I see that people who have to do that, they have taken the condition that accept us as we are, but the enemy will not accept them as they are. The enemy will win people with abnormalities. And I think that today the motivation, I mean motivation in explanation of what is going on, people must be concentrated both in Europe and Ukraine. Moreover, that Ukraine has very big resource of war crimes that are being done in Ukraine. All channels, all the internet has to be stuffed with this information so that people could see the real picture of which crimes are going on. The position is that the war is not mine, you know what it can be ended in. Oleg Albertovich, I give you the floor, and then Taras Gorody in 11:30 has to take the floor. We are going to wait for him. If he doesn't come, Mr. Farhat Ugly is going to take place. Dear participants, I represent the Institute of Environmental Renewal and Development of Ukraine. I'm the colleague of Mr. Yuri, and I will continue concerning humanitarian demining. I also would like to tell about development of ecological issues of Ukraine. The most necessary thing is to get funds, proper funding. It's necessary both for the army and for environmental. So when you need funding, what can you consider ecological safety? How could you consider it as an object? We consider it the total environment, air, land, water, environment, landscape, people, plants. That is the environment as such, and environmental security is aimed at the health of people. How do we consider and how do we think to solve the issue? First of all, I pay your attention that we develop the Department of Environmental Security. This system of environmental security, there is no such a case in the world. We develop it for the first time in the world because it's going to guarantees the stability of the system. The first thing is the proper information. Even in state bodies, it is difficult to get access to proper and true administrative decisions concerning environmental issues. Even in the ministry, it's a difficult task. In the Ministry of Environment, I was the worker for a lot of time. Information comes with pause of 2 or 3 years. If we talk about humanitarian demining, statistics of Europe says that 1 year of war means 10 years of demining. The war is going on since 2014. So how many years do you think it's going to be? So we need proper information. We use space systems, unmanned systems, stationary points of observation, and mobile ones, automobile points, and railway mobile assets for proper monitoring of environmental status, and that allows to get proper information. And now we need proper administration and proper and quick treatment of the information. So the situation can change very quickly. We extrapolate it and we assume what can we expect. We use mathematical models. What can we expect in 20, 30 or 100 years ahead to make models what we can do. Land, for example, what can we do with the land? Can it be used for rural economical entities, or can it be used in another way? It's about administrative decisions. Who is going to take decisions? Territorial community or some regional governmental body? The function has to be defined clearly. It's a very difficult task, and it means that territorial community, for example, that may have one sort of plan, and the state on the whole may have another plan, and administrative decisions also. If we have a plan from the point of view of what has to be done, but what administrative decision can be taken? Will it be finite administration, situational administration, strategical administration? For each type of administration, proper resources are needed and proper funds are needed. It's like moving from point A to point B for minimum of funding, minimal time, and so on. Everything has to be defined to effectively guarantee environmental safety. It's also the issue of the Ministry of Economy, Environment, and Rural Economy. My own point of view that National Council of security and defense has to take care of it and to consider it as the basic element for cyber security, military security, and other types of securities. And if you don't have a proper environment, if you don't have air, you will not have people. So it was my very short speech. Maybe too emotional. I'm sorry. Mr. Farhad Turanli, I give you the floor. Dear Mr. President, dear participants of an important meeting, roundtable meeting we are having today, I want to tell that Institute of Global Policy has much experience in defining such problems like environmental and others. We have enough important basis for to speak in depth about our today's topic, a new system of European security and defense against Russian aggressive external foreign policy. Long-going Russian aggression has shown that traditional mechanisms are limited in their capacities I speak about European Union, UN organization and NATO. That is why there has raised the necessity of creating new system of safety in the framework of NATO to guarantee stability and safety also for other regions against Russian threat, and strategic partnership of Ukraine and Turkey becomes being of big importance, and also we can use our meetings we had before to talk about it. This alliance could reinforce the balance in Europe and in the region of the Black Sea. Technological projects have the continuation of historical logic of this necessity of being of alliance. On the basis of mentioned historical and strategic fundament, we have to broaden out the model of regional security in the region of Black Sea and Caspian Sea, which can act as additional or alternative bloc for people and give the model of a wide regional alliance. First of all, Turkey and Ukraine need to have a development of a strategic partnership, and that has to be enforced by Bulgaria and other countries, broadening out of in Black Sea and Caspian region. We need more partners in Caucasus and Central Asia that will allow to build integrated safety belt, and the national directions of these collaborations may be common systems in anti-missile defense, counteracting air threat, development of production capacities for producing high precision weapon, deepening of cooperation in other areas, development of reinforcement of safety on the sea communications, operative coordination, common exercises and mechanisms of coordination in the framework of safety. This has to become the main chain between Europe and East, and has to reinforce the geostrategical space against Russian threat in our historical and geographical area. And to summarize with of the 1 minute, you have 1 minute left. In the framework of NATO and US, everything depends on the readiness of states and people to develop the model of counteracting Russian aggression. We have the potential to become to have the central role in building the stability in the Black Sea and Caspian region. In relation with the topic discussed by us, we have confirmed the project of today's session. We have mentioned all necessary, let's say, concepts and grounds which can be developed for the general concept for implementation of these mentioned before problems, finding solutions. I think that it is a proper time to act in a more concrete way. Thank you very much.
The Institute of Strategic Studies. Thank you very much. Our topic today is called The Issues and Prospects of Establishing a New Security System in Europe. Basically, we're speaking here only about issues. What about prospects? Probably this project, the arch or the curved project that has just been mentioned. At the end of summer, our institute prepared an analytical report with the same title, more or less the same. You can find it on our site. If you are interested, you can get yourselves familiarized with that. Now, 3 months after, some 40% of that probably has lost its relevance. But the main problem is in the following. We explored the possibility of establishing a system, a security system in Europe, which is purely European. What can become the foundation for it? Which unions or associations can become the foundation for that? The ones that we are existent. We looked at Nordec, Visegrad Group, Bucharest 9, etc. But all of them are ineffective and will be dysfunctional for many reasons. Thus, it just turns out, yes, it's possible that the coalition of the willing may be an effective tool, but it's about 40 countries that are drastically different countries with various motivations, with different levels of contributions to make. Some of them are just supporting morally. So creating something more or less efficient and solid doesn't seem to be realistic on the basis of this coalition of the willing. Maybe there are some negotiations ongoing that we only hear about from Telegram channels, between the United States, the Ukraine and Europe, for Ukraine to obtain some guarantees, including American guarantees, like Article 5 of NATO agreement. But how realistic this will be, and whether it will be not just lip service, we don't know. maybe something realistic will be created on the basis of that, because there are some European countries which are ready to get engaged not only with arms, but also their land forces. But to shape that, I think it'll take a long time, not in the nearest prospect, to be implemented. One more point to make. In actual fact, the only safeguard or pledge of security within Europe is NATO for numerous reasons, and the core of them is the contribution made by the United States to this alliance. We understand that this is the nuclear umbrella offered, which unfortunately neither the UK nor France can replace, because NATO was built in such a way in its day. And you have probably read the new strategy, the new national security strategy that has been recently promulgated, and something that has been the talking point for many officials and members of the administration in the US, starting with the Munich Security Conference when DJ Vance spoke, finally has been incarnated in a legal and official representation concerning NATO. NATO is to be regarded not as a tool of constant expansion of democratic space, but rather as a defense union, which has to focus on the enhancing and strengthening the existing defense capabilities of its members. So there is the foundation for all of the existing alliances. The democratic values as the common denominator is discarded, and Europe is regarded as a continent which is losing its confidence in the face of multiple challenges, including migration, etc. So European allies cannot secure themselves, which justifies the expectations of the United States to have to raise its military expenses. So something that one of the previous speakers said, yes, we are witnessing it nowadays. My daughter works for the European Commission. She has lived in Brussels for many years, and she says, you cannot imagine how they perceive the Russian threat. They level it out. They say, in 2 days, we will be in Portugal if anything happens. And these are not only Belgians who say so, because this country, the European Commission, is comprised of many nationals. So hoping that some of them will go as volunteers to fight, there's very little hope of that. So this is the situation unfolding in Europe, and this is not very good as a prospect for Ukraine to face. What is to be done? And there have been many proposals submitted today. Basically, what we have to do is think first of all about ensuring Ukraine's future security in order not to repeat the same invasion like it happens in different kinds of horror films, where there is this evil which emerges again and again from some swamps and from underground to commit its evil doings. So this is my message. Thank you, Mr. Alexandrov. Now I would like to give the floor to Dmytro Shkurko, the political analyst from Belgium, mentioned by the previous speaker. So let's hear what's happening in Europe now. Good morning, dear ladies and gentlemen. I'm thanking to the Institute of Global Policy for the possibility to speak in front of such a distinguished audience. I was able to work as a correspondent for this agency, Ukrinform in Brussels. So I have to make a point that Europe is going through another moment of truth, because the Russian war in Ukraine has become a catalyst in its own way, which goes far beyond its boundaries. If I have to outline the general picture, the war has seriously exacerbated the off-stand between the democratic and totalitarian systems. So it's much more than just the Russians' aggression. It's about the exacerbation of the global opposition. So here it speaks about a clear challenge. Which of the two systems will become more efficient and more viable? And this fight is gaining unheard of before and unexpected shapes and forms. As Mr. Alexandrov has already mentioned, We could have hardly imagined some time ago that the United States, which has always been perceived as a support of democracy, in the renewed, updated national security, will proclaim democratic Europe as its own opponent and will ignore the clear threats which emanate from Putin's Russia, which are the threats not only for the whole world but for Europe as well. Moreover, the peace agreement for Ukraine presented, which contains 8 points and was clearly devised in Moscow, and the United States are demanding from Ukrainian authorities to approve by Christmas. So the administration of Trump is assuming the position of Putin, and thus they force Ukraine to capitulate on the conditions and terms of the aggressor. So clearly this approach is not perceived properly not only in Kiev but also in the key capitals in London, Paris, Berlin, and the so-called frontline countries, the Baltics and Poland. And the indignation of this American plan that contains those 8 points was also very vehement in the US. For example, remember Richard Blumenthal, the senator, who said that this regulation plan is unfair and unjust, and he came up with another proposal to change the American negotiation team because the representatives of Trump, Kushner and Witkoff are on one side, the side of the aggressor. Ukraine, together with the European allies, as is commonly known, presented an alternative plan comprised of 20 points reflecting the interests of Ukraine. And recently we have heard just yesterday about substantive negotiations with Americans concerning the future recovery of Ukraine and the participation of the US in this process. But such plans, from my perspective, make little sense if the result of this negotiation will not be the physical security of Ukraine and a reliable security guarantees, which will make it impossible to repeat the Russian aggression. Ukraine remembers very well the Budapest memorandum, so we are not comfortable with this. We need stiff, rigid legal guarantees from Americans and Europeans. However, it's clear in terms of the security strategy and structure, Ukraine will never agree to what Kremlin wants, which means that the marathon of negotiations will go another round, which means that Russia will be declining all peaceful agreements, and the United States will exert pressure on Ukraine if even they want to remain in this negotiation cycle. So we need to pay tribute to President Zelensky and Ukrainian negotiations team because they are very decently keeping themselves under this pressure, and this partnership with the United States still remains very important for Ukraine for obvious reasons, but also for Europe, which is still undergoing the process of its own peaceful capability and is interested in security alliances with the United States. So I think that Zelensky gave a decent answer concerning his demand, Trump's demand concerning the new presidential elections. This requirement to replace the political leadership in the country is one of the key narratives of Moscow. So Zelensky remarked very properly that elections can take place within 2 or 3 months if the United States help them to create all of the security conditions, which means ceasefire. And under the current situation, it's impossible to imagine, and clearly Ukraine should not submit to this external pressure exerted, because otherwise it will be the destabilizing factor within Ukraine itself and will only play in the hands of the Russians' enemies, which is also my deep conviction. Concerning the American peace plan of 28 points, the Pope of Rome spoke about it and said that the approach of the United States will change the relations between the United States and the key European partners for a long time, and will exclude Europe from the peaceful negotiations, and it will only be an impediment, a hurdle in achieving peace. So clearly, after the Munich J.D. Vance speech and the new administration of Trump, American umbrella of security is disappearing, is vanishing from Europe, and Europe will have to take care of its own security by itself, which concerns not only in terms of continued support for Ukraine, but also ensuring physical support and survival of Europe, especially the manifestation of that on the eastern borders of the EU, which are gradually transforming into true fortifications. You can remember the Baltic Line of Defense and the Eastern Shield programs. Europe is taking this challenge, but in order to respond, it takes some time. And last year, the EU approved its plan concerning its defense capabilities and in increasing its defense production. IDIRPA and ASAP programs aimed at the development of European industrial potential and increasing defense capabilities and joint orders are commonly known. Now I'm moving on to my conclusions. Because last year, a conceptual document, Readiness 2030, was approved, and it stipulates funding, in particular, and some practical activities to raise European defense capabilities. Along with that, the European Union has to overcome the impediments which are still in place, the fragmentation in the first place of the European defenses. And they stem from the fact that defense as an issue is a prerogative of the national governments. Concerning NATO, it's a separate realm, and we can see that Article 5 of the Washington Agreement is getting ever more vague, because given the rhetoric that we are hearing today, it's not so firm anymore in terms of NATO countries' response to the challenges, security challenges that may emerge for specific alliance member countries, and which, by the way, poses a question concerning the negotiations positions with regard to presenting Ukraine with the security guarantees that the American party is talking about right now. So the conclusion, both Ukraine and Europe are facing the new geopolitical reality in which Ukraine, with its armed forces, battle experience and innovation, militech, is transforming a key element of the entire European security system. The resilience of Ukraine will provide Europe with some time to increase its own defense capability against the backdrop of the threat of Russia increasing in the background, and this is recognized by the European leadership, which means that Ukraine can still count on the political, economic and financial support on behalf of the EU countries, so Ukraine will remain a key element in the entire European security system for now and for the future. And I hope that on the 18th, we will be able to see the confirmation to that during yet another EU summit, where this reparation loan for Ukraine will be discussed. And the last conclusion to make: Ukraine has to make efforts in order to preserve and most likely reformation of NATO itself, even given the fact that Article 5 of its agreement, of Washington Agreement, is blurred. Still, the coalition needs to stay. Even the United States has to stay there. Available NATO structures have to be utilized effectively in order to protect Europe, and Ukraine will become an organic part of that. Of course, Ukraine could become an initiator in terms of shaping such an approach on the basis of the current coalition of the willing. In the future, this formation needs to be adapted to fulfill new tasks and assignments much broader than the idea of peacekeeping after the hot phase of the war is over. And in this context, the statement from Baltics to the Caspian Sea is a very intriguing one. Thank you, Mr. Dmytro.
Now I give the floor to Mykola Pasko, and Ilya Kvas is going to finalize our meeting. Mykola Pasko. Yeah, we are coming to the end of our talks, and I would like we do a lot of things in the military direction. We receive a lot of military equipment, and we receive a lot of funding. I think there is one issue that is underestimated in Ukraine, maybe as well, and in general, this issue isn't talked about. I mean, relation to media resources in Ukraine, and I have to mention that Mr. Turiev and Mr. Alexander told, Yuzba Kogut also mentioned, we talk about communication, about counter-propaganda measures, and I address your words that it is a very good formulation. There are people, but there is no infantry. There is no infantry because there are no willing. We can build a lot of metal structures, and but if people are not willing to to defend, they can just consider going to other countries, not defending their countries. How should we treat? Putin has closed his country. That's why he will have as many people as he can. On the other side, Putin explains in a free way in Europe, disseminates his propaganda, and Europe doesn't counter-rate. And if a man says, I'll go to Portugal, why should I decide something on? First of all, I offer Oleg Valerovich, the work is done by you is very good, but I also think and underline that the moment of reliable communication and anti-propaganda is just left without attention, with a lack of responsibility. Russia works actively in the whole world, and we all civilized countries, we are far behind Russia in this relation. That's why we don't have people, we don't have energy. So far, I'm dealing with it. I'm dealing with organization of that people in the civilized world wake up and start joining the resource of counter-propaganda. We have to explain to everybody Ukraine here is everywhere with media topics. We can do a lot of things on media level. All of us are dealing with the issues of counteraction. We are all for development, but our counter-propaganda is ineffective. Nobody is dealing with it on a proper basis. I need to stress that we have to pay special attention to it. Ukrainian media also, as a state, we heard a lot that this issue is monopolized and Ukrainian media do not work on a sufficient level with this. Media is not something simple. It's the soul of nation. It's a very complex mechanism. One should treat media as something very important. There are situations, for example, we talked about bad situations, but aggressor works in a more subtle way. It works the way that Europe doesn't pay attention to it. Nobody is interested. Why? Because the Europe keeps living in just living with what we have. We just keep living. Everything is good. One of the priests in Switzerland, when I visited that country, told me openly, "Why should we defend you?" Thank you, Mikhail Volodymyrovich, and now I give the floor to the last speaker. I want to express my gratitude to the initiator, the Institute of Global Policy. Though subject doesn't correspond 100% to distribution of my responsibilities in the ministry, but in historical retrospective, when I could say that when Russia started demounting modern-day architecture, we spoke about Georgia in 2008. I also remember 2010. There was a initiative supported by Merkel and Medvedev, and this initiative aimed at creation of a new architecture of safety in Transnistria as well. And I want to pay the attention that we have to watch, to have an open eye on what Russia is doing with its satellite countries like Belarus and with ODKB countries, and disregard of whether we consider ODKB, for example, a powerful unit or not. We have to pay proper attention to what is going on. And in this context, not far away, a few days ago, Lukashenko has taken the plan of defense of Belarus. In this doctrine, there is a question of dealing with nuclear weapon, and Belarus has to be watched closely concerning the observation of the treatment of non-proliferation of nuclear weapons. And on the other side, I would like to also share the opinion of the majority of speakers today that Europe has to be more concerned in safety issues. Though European countries has to become sober after the time of well-being, of several decades of well-being. Also military. It was the answer of true diplomat, and we have one speaker who didn't have the chance to speak, Andrei Buzarov, 5 minutes. It will be enough, 1 minute for me. When you are the last, you have the privilege to summarize. I have almost finished the doctoral thesis of the National Academy of Sciences. I'm also the strategical advisor in Ukraine Chamber of Commerce. All observations that I can make from practical side, I can't understand how can you build the European safety without the United States. I can't understand. I could not see any expert in Europe who was able to produce proper reasons. How can we do it without the USA? Political paradigm of the USA is just natural, and they are trying to make relations that correspond to their interests. We have to take into consideration that fact. I'm not the lobbyist for enforcement of interaction of Great Britain, but I see that Starmer and his colleagues are very active recently in building European system. Thirdly, I have a lot of questions concerning European Union as for interaction with Ukrainian enterprises. We have protocols stipulating relations with Ukraine, but bureaucracy is sometimes, and which is has been formed historically prevents many countries who want to deal with Ukraine from actively building enterprises, even if countries are ready to build with us on their territories. Concerning NATO, we have to speak about making a development partnership with NATO, but it's the issue of a question to NATO, not to Ukraine. Ex-Soviet space is going to remain the main field of counteracting Russia. The question of strategy of Ukraine concerning ex-Soviet space remains actual. Americans have this 5+1. Asian countries have that, but we haven't formed it yet. And the last aspect, as the president of Ukraine mentioned, Volodymyr Zelensky, Budanov and Sviridyanko also paid attention to that accent is of what we have built is self-sufficiency. Maybe it's impossible to reach on a global level, but on a partial level it can be achieved together with our European partners. Thank you, Mr. Andriy, and I would like to thank everybody for the active participation. We have given the floor to all speakers. Traditionally, we will prepare the materials of our roundtable, and besides, we have the project of resolution of our roundtable. I'm not going to read it. We will send them to all our participants. Farhad Turgli has prepared this project. We are very grateful to him for that, and all who have the desire to join the work on the project of these conclusions, you're welcome to give us your thoughts, and then we will sign it together. Thank you for your participation, for your attention. See you again.